Louis. How you doing, Louis?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for all the work that Entre Tramites is doing to support the Barcelona International Community Day.
Well, I'm glad we're here and very happy to help.
So, Louis, tell us, what is Entre Tramites?
You know, the simplest way I could say is we're the place for everything you don't want to do. So, we started 5 years ago as a YouTube channel, but now today, with over 100 members of our team, we do everything from the NIA to the visa, to your company incorporation, to your taxes, to hell. If it goes wrong, your divorce even. But we're here and happy to help with anything that you need help with on the legal side.
So is it fair to say that you are revolutionizing paperwork?
That is our slogan. We're trying to make it one bit less painful for everybody around. We know expats overpay. We know that there is exploitation of people who don't necessarily have a good grasp of the Spanish language. We love to be basically someone with transparent, honest prices.
So you say expats pay more than they need to. Is this the expat tax?
Yes, you know, there's always an issue when what we call information asymmetries. When you land, you know less of what something should cost. You arrive in a new country, you don't know, how much should it cost when I go to a restaurant? If you've been living in San Francisco, you're used to paying $50 for a sandwich and a couple of drinks. If you pay $50 for a couple of sandwiches, a drink and a couple of drinks and a sandwich, you'd be mad here. It's the same thing with legal services. People get used to, and what you see is that people price to that. So we always recommend to people that they really must shop around, because otherwise, frankly, they can just get screwed.
So you're also giving a little bit of visibility to this myth that the more that when you pay for legal services, for example, you get what you pay for, but a lot of times it's hard to distinguish a really good lawyer from one who doesn't have that much experience based on price alone.
Yeah, and there's a secondary issue in the Spanish market. So basically, if you come from the US or you come from the UK, you expect the standards which are required to qualify as a solicitor to be very tight, or a lawyer, depending on jurisdiction. In Spain, it's actually a relatively easy path to become a lawyer. The qualifying criteria are lower. Now, that has benefits of opening it up, but it also means that lawyer means a lot less than in other jurisdictions. So lots of the Italian lawyers who failed their legal exams come here to qualify. So lots of people think that that is a guaranteed way and pathway to success.
Okay.
And so they're like, yeah, it's great, I've got a lawyer. Okay, have you got any reviews? Do you know what they're doing? And sometimes you'll find some of the worst lawyers, they put on a very nice suit, they'll make you a coffee, and then charge you 3 times as much for half of the service.
Okay, and so how do you distinguish yourselves what you're doing than some of the other law firms here?
So I think our track record kind of speaks a little bit for itself. We could not have grown to over 100-person team, kind of bootstrapping our way up here, had we not served our clients. Like, the majority of our clients come today through word of mouth. That, of course, couldn't have been at the beginning, but it's a testament to it. You will go, you will find some unhappy clients. You always have them. But as a balance of all, we have a pretty happy client base. And you can see that from your reviews, you can see that from anything else, but yeah, it's, and the other thing, we want to be here for the long run. Our whole purpose is transparent pricing. One of the things I hate at the moment, and lots of foreigners will be seeing this, people sell these crazy tax saving solutions with LLCs, hiding your money offshore in Dubai, everything else, and it's just a fraud where people get overcharged. And we don't want to be a one-hit wonder who lasts us for 1 year, tries to rip off our clients and run off. No, we want to be that service you can rely on who'll tell you the honest truth.
Okay, so to give some context, you've grown to 100, is it partners, or how do you describe this?
No, over 100 team members.
100 team members in what period of time?
About 5 years.
That's pretty impressive growth there.
Yeah, and the first year we were just really a YouTube channel. We just kind of were like, okay, we'll launch, we'll try. We actually started trying to explain this stuff for free to Spaniards, because in the COVID pandemic, so many Spaniards were struggling to get online to access the services which they needed.
Oh, wow, okay. And that was to Spaniards. But now, for example, at this event that you're sponsoring,
yep,
the International Community Day is not Spaniards.
No. So it's the funny thing, right? You start with a market you think you're targeting. You start with a group that you think, yes, clearly there's so many Spaniards who need to deal with everything going online. They're used to turning up, and now they don't have access to their services because of a pandemic. But actually, as we developed and grew, what we found is that lots of Spaniards prefer more traditional framework, meeting in person, everything else. And on top of that, Spaniards were better served than expats. What we've largely found is that expats tend to be some of the worst served by legal and accounting services because they don't know what they necessarily should be searching and looking for. And so as of today, we're about 50-50 English speakers, Spanish speakers, but about half of our Spanish-speaking clients are from Latin America. So actually, our Spanish client base is now a much smaller share of our overall client base.
Excellent. And I've been lucky enough to attend some of your webinars and your events in person. And one of the things that I found is that you have a tremendous ability to see the big picture as well as drill down deep into detail. So I'm going to ask you a question that I always ask you at the events. What are the number, say, 1 and 2 major mistakes that people come when they need immigration or taxes done here? What are the biggest mistakes that expats make when they're in Spain?
Interesting. So I would say the biggest and most frequent problem which occurs, and I'm going to start with those without European paperwork, is they arrive thinking they've got everything in place so that they can land and migrate, and they don't realize they time out. This is particularly common and a big issue for people who move with, let's say, a European partner, and they land, and they think, oh, they have a right to stay without a visa. So one of the critical issues which occurs here is people land, turn up, and it can create lots of difficulty for getting work, for getting registered, and everything else. So the first thing is, check the requirements you have to actually live there for any non-Europeans. Do not assume that you're just going to be able to turn up and sign up and get straight to a tier. It's actually more recurring than you might think. Expats who are like, yeah, it's fine, I've got a partner, or, well, I've been here 3 months so far. And the worst thing is, if you don't have a partner, you've been here 3 months before, and you've overstayed, you actually need to leave Schengen immediately, and then can come back 90 days later. And that's really one of the most tricky things on migration. On tax, I'd say the biggest mistake people make is usually when somebody's setting up as self-employed, and they fail to register for tarifa plena. If you don't register for tarifa plena, which is like the discounted rate of Social Security, in the first 7 days, you lose it. It's gone. And that's 2.5K, 3K down the drain right from the beginning. So a little bit of help, advice, whether it's through free guides that we offer, our YouTube things, or potentially some more specialist services from us, can help guide you through that. You do not need to take any of our paid products. That's definitely not the thing. It's just have a look, see what we've got, make sure you understand what you're getting into. Because you do not want to overstay that 3-month point, and you do not want to miss tarifa plena if you're going to be self-employed.
Excellent. Okay, so we know how wonderful Entre Tramites is. Now, let's get back into the Barcelona thing.
Okay, let's talk about it.
What is your favorite part about Barcelona?
You can walk down any street at almost at any time of the day or night, and there is somebody there. This makes it safe. Like, look, everybody moans about the pickpocketing and the light theft. It's true. There is unfortunately a problem with it. But actually, the reason people moan about it is because you don't have violent crime here. If you compare Catalonia, Barcelona, Spain, to most of the rest of the world, it's incredibly safe. And that enables everything. That means that you can have restaurants and life at any time of the day. It means that you don't feel lost. And so the nature of that is what then gives the ability, the city, to live and breathe. And yeah, which means there's life everywhere at any time of the day.
Now, you're a smart guy, so you're probably well versed on a lot of subjects. One of the biggest challenges here is housing crisis.
Yep.
The price of housing is getting even locals who've been here their whole life getting frustrated because they have to leave the city because they can't afford to live here.
Yep.
Is this something that you see encouraging or being exacerbated by a growth of expats?
So it's a bit of a mixed story, right? Yes, clearly, when you have more migration to an area, there is an increase on housing pressures. There is a flip side to this. If you look at Barcelona today and you compare it to 20, 30 years ago, lots of the restaurants, facilities, jobs which are available to people here locally have been because of this massive wave of international investment which has come in. So yes, of course, when you have higher migration, it's going to have some upward pressure on housing prices. But if you look at the effect of the international community on increased tax take, which helps finance schools, hospitals, everything else, it's a very hard argument to say that it's not counterweighting itself. And I understand a lot of the pressures which people feel, particularly those who grew up in Barcelona, and it's a change because living costs have gone up, but so have salaries. And I think one of the things where there's a disconnect is there are two ways in which you can lower housing costs in Spain. In Barcelona, you increase the murder rate, so if more people die and there's more crime on the streets and it's less desirable to live, people will leave. Or you crush foreign investment in order that there are less jobs and more unemployment. The sad reality is the reason Barcelona is expensive is because it's a fantastic place to live. And it offers good education and job opportunities. And yes, there is clearly a pressure which came from expats, but it's a trade-off. Everything's weighted. And I think one of the problems in lots of the public debate here is it lacks a lot of the nuance about what it really means for people who live here and the opportunity it's provided.
That's an excellent description. I was recently on a panel on TV3 discussing the challenges and the causes of unhappiness about the living in Barcelona and optimism or pessimism for its future.
Yep.
And one of the things that came very clear is the expats and internationals who are here are so pro and so bullish on the future of Barcelona, and the locals were very negative. And one of the challenges that I saw was maybe there's a spirit. Sometimes you don't know how good you have it until you leave and you see what a wonderful place this is. But I don't want to paint it with a broad brush, and I certainly don't want to make light of the fact that even locals who were born and raised here can't live here. But is it also more of a challenge of the fact that this is an international city that has international aspirations, cosmopolitan, and everywhere you go around the world is getting more expensive, yep, in particular areas that are in high demand?
So, I think you've touched on an interesting trade-off point, which is the disconnect on levels of optimism. I think it's actually a slightly different underlying story. If you look at people who have originally grown up here, and most of the people who complain most heavily about the increase in cost pressure and everything else tended to be the upper middle class of Barcelona. So what happened among the lower earning groups and lower middle is the increased, basically, international demand and spending power drove up the salary level at the bottom. So you had increased demands, which led to an increase in the living standards and possibility of those who had the lowest level of income. What you then had were the kids of the upper middle class, those who their parents did own a home previously. They don't necessarily own a home yet. They want to leave home. They may have been working in good local jobs, but they're now no longer top of the pie. One of the things which occurs when you get internationalization is when you get higher earning and higher, more specialized firms, you change who is the top. So even though, let's say, the upper middle class within Barcelona, even with the increase in housing costs, are better off than their parents were, are better off than 10, 20 years ago, they may not be relatively better off relative to the rest of the population. Because when you have an influx of people who come with successful careers and financing, and this is not just from outside of Spain, right? This is also within the rest of Spain, who have come and migrated to Barcelona. If you look at how many Spaniards are the Catalans who move in, and it tends to be the people who move are the people with higher educational prospects, higher educational. So what's happened has been an inversion. We now have a much larger share of highly skilled people. And so if you previously were the top of a pyramid and now you're in the second rung, it does have a negative effect on this. And quite often the people who have enough visibility to turn up on Cat 3 in the Channel 3 tend to be the people who used to have the most significant power. So I think there's a disconnect within it. I think there are very real concerns. But if you look at genuine living standard changes within it, I think there's a much more complex story underlying it.
The truth is usually more interesting than the, talking points.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So what is your favorite place to eat in Barcelona?
So, this is flaming hard because Barcelona has an unbelievable selection of restaurants. I would probably say, just because I'm a ridiculous fan for Argentinian meat, Tabernicula, which is out in Poblenou, is utterly fantastic. But there are so many good restaurants, and I'd say that the wide range that you get here means you can have whatever you want. Honestly, Tabernicula narrowly takes it, but there are so many others I could go through.
Okay. And when you think about International Community Day, why is it that Entre Tramites is so pro and such a big part of this event?
Other than shameless commercial reasons?
Yeah.
No, I mean, yes, clearly shameless commercial reasons, but also, look, we started on the basis of doing free advice. The nice things about these sorts of conferences and everything else you're doing is that you can present not just, for lack of a better description, you can give people the free advice that we started with. Our initial intent was to help as many people as we could. The reality is commercially we need to take on clients, we need to make the business work, we need to build on it. But these conferences are a great opportunity just to guide hundreds of people who are lost in how to make their first steps and to clear up any concerns they may have had. So yeah, we love being here. It's a great excuse, and to be honest, there's all sorts of random events. I mean, whatever they've been pulling off on the front lawn out here has been exciting. We've had Peruvian dancing. We had a band from Nostra Magnum.
We had networking, like 60 different women doing speed networking together.
Yeah, I have no idea how you network between 60 people within an hour. That's absolutely unreal for me. I would get lost like talking to 10 people, but you know, some people are a lot better at multitasking than me.
But there's a lot of the international community in one space at one time during the year, and Entre Tramites is there to serve them all, especially a lot of the stuff that's not interesting in their life.
Absolutely.
You guys take care of it. So if it's interesting,
no,
you don't
ask us. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a fascinating topic. And then, of course, you have beautiful people like Javiera who come in here and she makes sure that everything is running right. She's always kind of, you know, making the rounds, networking with people, smoothing things over.
Oh, absolutely. I'm far too abrasive and conflictual. Like, one of the wonderful things actually is our founding team, right? We're expats. We have one of the four of us who, as he says, I'm Galician, I'm Gallego. He doesn't even first say Spanish, so he kind of feels like an expat himself, even though he's Spanish. We got Chilean, Colombian co-founders. I mean, I'm British, Danish. Like, we are outsiders looking in. And it's a balancing act. And so, yeah, I come here to be interviewed by you. I babble on, but yeah, Javiera is sending me wherever I need to be, and I'm ready to respond. And yeah, so if anyone's listening in and it's one of our partners, if it's anybody else who's looking for help because they're lost, just give us a call, message us, let us know.
I don't think we could end on a better note than that. Entre Tramites takes care of the pain in the butt things that you need to take care of so you can have a better life here in Barcelona and make sure that you are legally safe and sound and ready to grow your business.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us, and have a good night.
Thank you.